Hi, I'm Julieann Hartman, and welcome to Heart to Heart. Today I have on a very special guest. This is a friend of mine, Tammy Carson. Tammy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. You're probably wondering, what is Tammy's specialty? Well, this show today is going to be very special. It's going to be a little different. This show is about something that we women from our 40s on experience. And one of those things is menopause. Mm-hmm. And so I'll just set it up. Tammy and I were talking one day, and the things that she was telling me, I've experienced myself. I have not. I've been doing a lot of research about this because I noticed that things were changing in me, and I didn't understand what was going on. And not so much doctors can't always pinpoint certain things. And so I just said, hey, have you ever felt this, or that? And she said, oh, let me tell you. So we sat in the parking lot of our kids' school and we talked for about an hour. And it was so nice to hear somebody else tell me what, not that I wanted to hear stuff that you've gone through, but just stuff that you have gone through. So I say, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy, or, or something is not terribly wrong with me. And that's really the main thing, as the reason why I wanted to have this show. So Tammy, I know that we can't, replicate everything we said that day, but, just.
Well, let's try though, because it was some good stuff.
It really was, because I'd asked her, have you ever felt, I think, what was the question? Oh, it's just this emotional thing that goes on. Now, I know that I'm not in menopause. I know that. I don't know if you are yet.
I'm already finished. Well, I shouldn't say that because I still have symptoms, but I am post-menopausal.
Okay, well, I'm gonna beat her up after this because darn it, I didn't know you were already through it.
Yes.
All right. Well,
but that doesn't mean everything stops. It's very interesting.
And even my mom too is 72 years old. She still experiences different symptoms. But for me, I'm 48 years old. In my mind, I think I'm 24. So changes in my body, you're like, what are you talking about? What is going on? So just to kind of give a little bit about a history of what happened to you in your journey when you were my age. I think it was even before that, maybe.
The thing about menopause that I think I've personally experienced is that there's so many more changes that go on, and I think it starts so much earlier than we've ever been told. Mm-hmm. So I think there are symptoms that start even before your doctor tells you that you're perimenopausal. Okay. But we don't identify them as, traditional menopausal symptoms. Like, I think everyone talks about hot flashes,
right.
Maybe even night sweats and maybe some of the, your middle expanding.
Right.
But they don't talk about where, you start to develop anxiety that, you have no prior history of. They don't talk about, feelings like you're going crazy. They don't talk about your body getting insensitivities to chemicals, to medications. I mean, there were medications that I have taken before in the past, and I would start taking them right after I started the menopausal journey, and would have completely different reactions to them. Mm. And I don't think. And I've never had a doctor say, "Oh, this is all because of menopause." And I believe that some of my doctors would probably say, "Oh, you're nuts. It's something else."
Okay.
But I believe wholeheartly that when you go back and you look at when some of the really interesting things started taking a turn, and I started being somebody I wasn't who I was.
Right.
I believe that it had to do with menopause.
Now, did you have anybody around you that was your age that was going through it to where you could say, hey, call somebody, hey, have you experienced this or that, or were you on this journey alone?
No, I was I was on it alone initially. I have 2 older sisters, but I went through very young. And I think some of that is hereditary because I started when I think I started perimenopause around 38 years old.
Oh, okay.
Which they say can last, 3 to 10 years, and then you can go through menopause. But I think I went through that fairly quickly and was menopausal by the time I was 46. But the early stages, I didn't really have anybody. I started calling my sisters, and they were still fully menstruating, and when they finally started having similar symptoms and we started comparing notes, then I started realizing I would have somebody to go through it with.
Well, I know for me, and that's why I wanted to do this show, because I know that I was searching on the internet going, God, why do I feel this way? And it wasn't really the physical symptoms, Tammy. It was more of the just the the mental stuff that I was going through. That's what was getting me, was just this, like you said, looking in the mirror and going, who are you? Like, what is wrong with you? Why are you thinking these things? Why do you feel these things? Like, and then my husband, oh my gosh, he deserves a medal. There's got to be support groups for husbands because really the husbands go through hell with you, and they don't. And and just as a rule with husbands anyway, they want to be the fixers, and this is something they cannot fix. Now, my husband prays for me all the time, but he can't just go in there and do something and fix it.
Right.
And of course, he wants to say, "Hey, take this," but there's nothing to take. At least what I've chosen. And that's why, there are different roads people do take. So I just want to kind of get a little bit now of your history as far as, were you taking anything? What doctors did you go see?
Okay.
Like, what was your whole thing there?
All right. Well, I think with me, one of the initial symptoms that things were really starting to change was anxiety and the chemical sensitivities. So at the time I was experiencing things like I had a little high blood pressure, and they would put me on high blood pressure medicine, and I would find myself, just having all kinds of what I thought or they thought were imaginary symptoms.
Okay.
And it would just get to the point where I would be so scared that after I would take a pill that I would, one time I went to the pharmacy, and when I got the prescription and I sat down, it was 10 o'clock at night, and I sat down in the pharmacy and I just sat there and waited, for the medication to work, because I had the anxiety that develops in you is just so irrational, and I just believed I was going to die. This blood pressure medicine, could really seriously harm me. So I would sit in the pharmacy, and the pharmacist was great, and he would just talk with me until I could wait. I believe there was some imaginary number, like 20 minutes or 30 minutes for the medication to work, and then I would no longer, I wouldn't be at risk of anaphylactic shock or something. Who knows what I thought I was going through at the time. But your mind just starts to play tricks on you. And I believe that it's hormonal based. And there's going to be plenty of professionals out there that would say, no, that's, depression and anxiety.
Right.
But I look at all of the different changes that are going on in your body, and I'm convinced that all of that started. And if you look at the path of it, you very, very, the anxiety starts, it gets very intense right around the time that you're going into full menopause, and then it starts to dissipate as you're postmenopausal.
Okay.
And, another example of that is, I'd get so scared that I remember one time sitting in the parking lot of the hospital. I went to the ER, and I sat in the parking lot and, took my medicine just in case there was something that was going to happen. Now, if you look at it, there's also a lot of other physical symptoms that kind of lead into that, and they are all symptoms of anxiety. There's the heart palpitations,
right.
And there's all the thoughts of doom and gloom, and if you look at what the traditional symptoms are of anxiety, that's what I had. I would say I was developing a panic disorder very, very shortly. But I believe that the menopause and the chemical changes that were going on in my body were responsible for that.
Well, and I feel this way, though, but it's you can say that because it's your body. I know that medical doctors have books and all this, and, but I feel this way. It's like, your body will talk to you and tell you what's going on. Because I would sit for many, many days and go, what is wrong? If the Holy Spirit lives inside of me, what is going on? You need to tell me. You need to talk to me and tell me what's going on. Show me, guide me.
Yes, that's what I could have used. So when you talk about whether or not I had any support, I wish that I would have had, more spiritual support. But when you're in the midst of it, and this is probably the case with a lot of things, you know that you should turn to the Lord when you're going through something like this. And we're all told to do that. But I think that when menopause gets its grip on you, there are so many changes that happen in your body. There's physical, changes, there's emotional changes, that you believe that the people who are going to help you with this are doctors. So you get caught up in this medical quagmire. It becomes this whole mess that you're trying to, figure out. So you go to this doctor, and then this doctor runs this test and says, we see, for an example, I also went through some changes with my eyes, a lot of blurred vision, some other issues and changes with my retinas, and I went to that doctor, and then that doctor told me that I should be tested for an autoimmune disorder. After he ran the test, it came back, some abnormal stuff was in it. So he referred me to a rheumatologist. The rheumatologist then took a look at it and said, I don't really know what this all means. This lab, the way that they ran the test, it really doesn't make any sense. So they gave it to a specialist at Johns Hopkins, who was a specialist in antiphospholipid antibodies, because that's because that's where I tested, weird. And it took this woman, this expert at Johns Hopkins, to look at it and say it's probably nothing. But then they sent me to another doctor, to run clotting, blood work. And I had, at one time, I think I counted it up, and it was like 11 ologists. From a gynecologist to an otolaryngologist to a neurologist, because memory problems, right? You got the whole memory problem going on, which is crazy. So I was telling you about all the ologists,
right.
just
gastroenterologist.
I had a gastroenterologist. I had, I'm trying to think of some of the other obscure ones. It just felt like everywhere I was going, I was always going to a specialist, and there wasn't one doctor to really coordinate all of the work. But memory, talking about memory that is probably one of the scariest changes that happens, along with the chemicals and sensitivities and the anxiety that can occur and make you feel like you're losing your mind. And if you mention it to a doctor, they're just going to say, oh, well, that's normal, like to misplace your keys or whatever. But I'm talking about some memory changes that I don't think people talk about as being all that normal. Yet if you go through the battery of testing, which I did with a neurologist and all that memory stuff, and it all comes back positive, it all comes back negative.
Right.
There's nothing being wrong. But for example, I have a girlfriend who miscarried with twins. And she called me or emailed me and told me about this. And I read it, and I said, I'm going to have to call her. I'm going to have to, and then forgot about it. Completely
Tammy,
forgot.
I totally understand. I've done something not that, but something that was really important. I did the same thing. It's like it almost got dismissed.
It
went into the trash file with, and I tell you what was hard for me is I was listening to so many things and reading so many things, and all I kept seeing was the big A, Alzheimer's.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's what makes you run to the doctor, who then says, well, maybe you should be tested, and we should send you to a neurologist, and then
I'm trying, and then you don't even watch Dr. Phil's and the Dr. Oz are really great shows, but if you're in that hyper state of alert, don't watch those shows, because you're going to get in trouble, because that's what you're going to see. Like anything they come up, you're going to say, oh, I have that. You have a pain in your left, whatever. Oh, I have that. Well, that means you have this horrible disease. And that's what was starting this whole snowball of this. My snowball started like this and got to be bigger than this whole room.
Well, and that's exactly right, because we talked about, we're the kind of people that when we have a question about something or we're concerned about something, we're intelligent women, we research. So you get online and you just go to WebMD, or you go to Mayo Clinic has the health, and you start to research, and you get more and more information, and that just, like you said, builds that snowball even bigger.
Yeah. And how many times did you say you decided, well, I know I've got MS or leukemia or something?
Yeah, I was convinced I had, MS at one time, because I had all this numbness and tingling in my leg and my foot. And then when I saw the neurologist and he did the test, that does the test on your leg,
reflexes.
The reflex test, he discovered I was, hyper in one leg and there wasn't enough in the other leg. And, it was just crazy. It's scary.
I know, but we're running out of time, and I just want to thank you so much, because I hope this really did, give you something to think about, to say, oh my gosh, because I'll tell you, if I would have watched a show like this, I would have said, wow, I'm not crazy. But I will tell you this, Tammy, no matter what I felt, no matter what I was listening to or hearing, I still would say, God, what do you have to say about this symptom? And that's what I had to keep going back to. Now, did I hear from him every time? No, I didn't. But over time, I started hearing. And so our foundation scripture for today is Romans 12:12. And it says, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer. And really, that's all we have. And that's all we need. It's not even saying that's the last resort. That's all we need.
And that's the cure to uncertainty.
Absolutely.
When you're starting to feel that unsureness of what's going on in your life, the only place to turn to is the Lord.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for joining us. From my heart to yours, this is Julieann Hartman and Tammy Carson saying, see you soon, and we will talk to you later.